fill bass players. In today's video we're going to talk about enharmonic notes. Now I don't know if you've heard that term before, but what that means are notes that sound the same but have different names, maybe multiple different names. So for example, let's look at our A on our G string. So we've got A here and we've got B here, right? And if you take A and you sharp it, you get A sharp, right? But if you take B and you flat it, you get B flat. So what that means is that A sharp and B flat sound the same, but they're called different names, and that makes them enharmonic notes. And every note, there are 12 different half steps in our major scale, and every note has another enharmonic name. So, for example, G sharp is the same as A flat, right? And you can even take natural notes like G and say A double flat. But we'll get into that another day. Let's take a look at a keyboard. And I don't have a live keyboard, so we're just going to look at this little chart that I made. So you can see here we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Going this way is ascending the scale, and going that way is descending the scale. So getting higher in pitch and getting lower in pitch. So let's take this C for example. C, if you go up a half step, you have C sharp. D, if you go down a half step, you have D flat. So that note right there is the same key, so it'll make the same pitch, but you call it different things. And the reason why this happens is usually because of a key signature or a scale or a chord that you're using. So for example, if we're playing our F major scale, right? F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. Let's think about that B flat that's in that scale. It sounds a little bit better and it makes more sense in our heads to have a scale that has every single note name, right? So F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. But our accidentals mean that we have one flat, right? Our key signature dictates that we have one flat for F major. So we want to make sure that we're calling that flat a B flat instead of an A sharp, so that we have a note from every note in our scale, right? So F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F makes a little bit more sense than F, G, A sharp, C, D, E, F. Like if I heard that, I would think, what happened to the B? You know? So that's basically why we do this. So looking back at this, it makes a lot of sense when we talk about our like G sharps and A flats, right? But what about our notes that don't really have an accidental note in between them? So that's E to F and B to C. So for all of our other notes, there is like an accidental half step in between our natural notes. So between A and B, there's that half step that's either A sharp or B flat. But we don't really have that between B and C and between E and F. So how we enharmonically name these, if you go B, what would you call B if you sharp it? So if you take B up a half step, but you still want to call it B, that's just B sharp, right? So another name for C is B sharp. And then in vice versa, if we take C and we flat it, so we go down a half step, we can just call that C flat. So B is the same as C flat, C is the same as B sharp. And that's the same with E and F. So F is the same as E sharp, and E is the same as F flat, right? Sounds kind of weird because we don't really use those terms very often. But now we're going to take that and figure out how to think about it on our bass. So we know that with all string instruments, the higher up on the string you go, the higher in pitch it makes, right? So we know if we take a note and we go a half step in that direction on the string, we're going to sharp that note by a half step. And vice versa, if we take that note and we go a half step in that direction, we're going to flat the pitch by a half step, right? So, for example, let's think about C. If you wanted to find C sharp, where would that be? Just a half step in that direction of C, right? Okay. So then let's think about D flat. So D is on an open string, right? So if we wanted to find D flat, we can't really go any lower than an open string on that string, so we have to go down to the next string. And this is when it comes in handy to kind of be very familiar with where your notes are. So D, we know that we have a C right here, and we know that in between C and D is D flat / C sharp, and that's the note we want to find. So let's go D, we find our C, and then we go in between those notes, which would mean we would go up a half step from that C sharp. So your D flat is right there. So in our first position, is when you have your first finger on A or E, B, F sharp, right? So when we are in first position, our fourth finger tells us a half step below the next open string, right? So for example, G, right here, open G, we go to the next string over, and then we place down our fourth finger in first position. And that's how you go down a half step from your open strings, right? So now let's look at how to find the same note on the next string. So a lot of the time we don't want to play our open strings, right? Because sometimes it can sound kind of ugly. What sounds better, right? Or this. Personally, I think the second one sounds better because you have a little more control over the tone, right? If you can put in a little vibrato, then you have a little more control over that tone. So as often as we can, we want to try to close open strings, but we need to be able to find that closed open string in order to use it, right? So we know that our fourth finger in first position on the next string plays a half step down from our open string. So if we take that and we go one half step above it, that's going to give us the same note as the next open string. So here's that half step below, that F sharp. So if I wanted to go from F sharp and find that open string note, I'd go a half step up, right? So here's my F sharp. There's my G. Open string G, closed string G. So let's try that on the D string too. So D string, open D string. We know a half step down is right here. But we want to find the same note, which is a half step up from that. So and our strings have notes all the way up them, and they keep ascending by half steps. So you can play all of the notes on all of the strings pretty much, except you can't go lower than the open string, right? So for example, this E that's right here, so first position, first finger on your D string E, can also be found right here on your A string and right here on your E string. It's all the same note, but you play it in different spots. So we're going to do a little pop quiz now. Question number 1, and the way that we're going to do this, I'm going to ask the question, you're going to pause the video while you think about it and try to come up with the correct answer, and then play the video when you're ready for the correct answer, okay? So question number 1, what is another name for E flat? So what is the enharmonic another enharmonic name for E flat. Pause the video and think about it. And if you're ready for the answer, the enharmonic name for E flat is D sharp. Okay, so E right here, down a half step, E flat, right? And then we go down another half step, and that is D. And so D sharp is in that same spot. All right, question number 2. What is another name for B sharp? All right, pause while you think about it. And when you're ready for the answer, an enharmonic name for B sharp is C, C natural, right? Because there's no half step, there's no accidental half step between B and C, right? B and C are just a half step away from each other. So B sharp, here's B, there's B, up a half step for B sharp, and that's just C, right? All right, question number 3. This is more of a do-it-yourself kind of question. Find the G natural that's on your D string. Okay, so pause the video, try to find it. And when you're ready, we can watch me for the answer. So I want to find that pitch on this string. So I go. So about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half steps above your open D string is your G natural, okay? And the next question is kind of like a bonus challenge question because it's a little tricky, okay? So here it is. Find the E on your A string, right? So you want to find this pitch on this string. And I'll give you a hint. Try to find your D first and go a whole step above your D, okay? So pause the video while you figure that out. And when you're ready to see the correct answer, the E on your A string is right here.